Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webcast, Taking Advantage of the Cloud. Today we'll be taking a deeper dive into how you could benefit from moving to a cloud-based accounting solution on Azure. Bill Vicino, our Senior Technical Consultant at AKA, will be presenting this webcast.
Okay, good morning, everybody. As Jessica said, my name is Bill Vicino. I'm a senior systems engineer with AKA. I've been with the company for 17 years in that capacity, and in that time my primary job functions include installing and upgrading GP, CRM, Dynamics AX, working with SQL Server, terminal services, and basically providing infrastructure support for the Dynamics line of products. In the last 3 years, my company, AKA, has been hosting GP for a number of our clients, and I get involved with the infrastructure support on that side as well. For this particular webinar, I think it makes sense as best as possible. If I'm touching on a subject that you have a question about, go ahead and ask the question at that time, and I think Jessica's going to give me the questions, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. And again, there'll be some dedicated time at the end of this presentation for questions and answers. I think the actual presentation itself takes something like a half hour, so we have plenty of time built into this meeting for questions, during the presentation at the end. And I believe Jessica's going to be recording this and making the presentation available on our website. Okay, and basically what we're talking about today is cloud solutions and how AKA can help you, sort of move your Dynamics environment into a cloud solution. So I guess to take it at the simplest or highest level, the first question you might have is, what is cloud computing? And you hear quite a bit of it now. You see lots of commercials on TV these days for the Microsoft Azure cloud solutions. Essentially, cloud computing is just taking computers and resources, and instead of having them on premises, having them hosted by another partner like Microsoft or AOL. And so cloud computing sort of leverages the ability of these large organizations like Microsoft and AOL to build out large server farms and have really state-of-the-art infrastructure. And so basically they take on the responsibility for maintaining the latest and greatest as far as hardware and software and protecting your data, and it leaves you to do your business. For anyone who doesn't think they're currently doing cloud computing, you probably are. More likely you have an email account with Gmail or Hotmail. You may have been using AOL back in the 90s. You may still be using AOL. These are all cloud-based, email solutions. If you place an order on Amazon's website, you're using a cloud-based e-commerce solution. So even if you don't think you're in the cloud, at least on some level you're touching the cloud probably every day. I think one of the keys we want to go through today is what are the benefits of being on the cloud. Obviously, it's a bit of a change if you had your data, for Dynamics GP or whatever applications you have on premise. If you have them in-house and you support them and maintain them, it's kind of a daunting task to move to the cloud. So why would you want to do that? And I think the key here is we want to go over the benefits and see how it's really a smoother transition than you might think. And there are a lot of advantages that you might not even be aware of. So I just want to make you aware of them today. Some of those advantages include the easiness of upgrades. Again, if we're hosting your Dynamics GP environment in Microsoft's Azure cloud, for example, we have great access to it. We can build out a test environment. We can move your data to that environment, upgrade it, and make it available to you very easily, more easily than we probably could if we were providing those services to you on premises. Another big advantage is you have productivity anywhere. Again, you might have one central office and a number of satellite offices, and maybe the satellite offices complain about their access to your accounting data. It's not as good as it is if you're in the home office. If you move your application to the cloud, it's kind of very democratic and everybody gets equal access. Another nice thing is you don't have to worry about scaling your environment. If you move your environment to the cloud, we can very easily add more memory, add more processor power, spin up more servers. Whereas when you do that internally, it's much more challenging. Sometimes you have to order hardware and sort of continually pay for new software licenses. In the cloud, it's more seamless. Another advantage is, when Microsoft builds a data center, There's all kinds of redundancy in the power supplies, the internet connections, so you're basically always up. We have almost no downtime on the hardware part of things, and when we do have downtime, it's scheduled. We do updates on a scheduled basis during non-working hours, and we let you know in advance. So really, your environment, your application is always up. And there's some hidden costs of ownership advantages to being in the cloud with us, saving on your IT resources, saving on energy use, saving on licensing fees. So we'll talk about that a little later, but there's a lot of cost of ownership benefits to being on the cloud that you may not be aware of, and we'll try to point those out to you. So again, you've probably seen a number of commercials on TV these days. Seems like Microsoft's pushing their Azure solution very strongly, and it's growing very rapidly. And I have to say, in the 3 or so years that we've been working with Azure, the servers have gotten faster. The uptime has gotten to the point where there is really no downtime these days. So Azure is essentially Microsoft's cloud platform, and what that means, it's a set of resources that we can use to build out a GP environment for you or an AX environment in their data centers. Their platform consists of virtual machines, storage, networking, and applications that we can take advantage of and kind of loop together to build a very unique environment to you. One of the things we try to do is not have a one-size-fits-all approach to this. We can build out machines that are very tailored to your specific user counts and needs and applications that you're trying to deploy in the cloud. And Azure gives us that flexibility. Some of the other advantages of using Azure as a backbone for our cloud solution is that it's very secure, very scalable, and very available. So you don't have to worry about downtime. The servers are always up. I know we've had clients sometimes, weekend work in their office will mean that the power supplies are cut off and you don't really have any choice of what happens in your building. Microsoft, whenever they do any kind of work, especially on the hardware side of things, they always, let you know in advance, and the downtime's almost nothing. They literally are able to handle their outages or their downtime in a predictable way when they do upgrades on the hardware. They just move your machines to other hardware, so there is very little downtime. If you look at do a little research on Azure, it has a 99.9% availability in their SLA. There's 24-hour by 7-day-a-week tech support from Microsoft should something be down or a problem on their facilities. And this number of 57% of Fortune 500 companies, that's probably a year-old number. I'm sure it's a much higher number now. Quite a few people are taking advantage of the Microsoft Cloud offering in Azure. So I think one of the questions that comes up quite often to someone who may not be familiar with having an application hosted in the cloud is, what does it look like? And I guess my simplest way of describing it is, with our solution from AKA, you go to a website, and depending on the user going to that website, they log in, and they're going to be presented with a group of applications. So if you're a Dynamics GP user and you're an admin, you might see Dynamics GP as an application with a link to click on. You might see Management Reporter as a link to click on. You might have a separate published application for Excel if you needed it, or SQL Management Studio. So depending on the user, they would just click on the links on this website. That would launch the application in our cloud-hosted environment, but it looks very much like it would if you were launching the same application in your office. It really is pretty seamless to the end user. Like I said, launching the application is very straightforward. I would say the only differences you might see is if you need to print something from Azure, it's going to be actually printing from Azure to your home office. So there might be a little slower than it would if you're printing from a local machine. But we have a number of clients in Azure right now, and printing is not a problem, I would say, really for any of them. We have had a few instances where some specific printers had to have some specific drivers loaded in Azure to make them perform optimally. But we really, I was surprised when I started this 3 years ago. I thought we'd have a lot of printing issues, and really, we have very few of them, quite frankly. And I think you'd have some printing issues even if you were printing in your own office to a local printer. So that seems like it takes care of itself very well. And the good news here is, when you're in Azure, your IT team can focus on what they need to focus on to keep your business optimized. It really takes the burden of maintaining GP off them. You don't have to worry about things like backups and SQL access and security. We take care of all that in the background, and it works out very well. Most IT teams would rather focus on other things rather than ERP solutions. And here's one thing to think about when you talk about cloud solutions, whether it's Dynamics GP or CRM or Office 365. If you were a new business starting today, I would say of any of our new clients, almost everybody's looking for a cloud or hosted solution. No one wants to go through the problems of setting up an internal infrastructure and maintaining it and securing it. So if you're a new startup, almost everybody's looking for a cloud hosted applications. The other side of the coin is if you already had an application like Dynamics GP or Dynamics CRM in your office and you're used to supporting it, you may realize all the work and effort and energy that sometimes goes into supporting these applications and maintaining it and helping your users as a help desk. So this is a really good opportunity for you to kind of consider moving to the cloud. It's a much smoother transition than you'd think. I do a number of GP cloud migrations, and I do a number of GP upgrades on premises, and whether we do the GP upgrade in the cloud or we do it on premises, it's really the same set of steps, and it's pretty seamless to use either way. So if you're considering moving to the cloud, I don't think you should be concerned about downtime or extra expenses for an upgrade. If you're upgrading GP right now on premises or you're upgrading on the cloud, I just give you one quote for the upgrade. It's the same price. It really doesn't cost more to upgrade on the cloud. You just pay the additional fee for the monthly cloud services after the upgrade. I would say most people these days are either actively migrating to Office 365 if you have an Exchange server from on-premises. They're migrating to Office 365 in the cloud or already have. I don't think many people look at hosting, Exchange anymore internally. And I can speak for ourselves. Our own organization, we moved to Office 365, and we moved our Exchange server to the cloud several years ago, and it's worked out very well. And I would admit, though, a couple years ago when we first moved to the cloud, there were some issues with Exchange here and there being down, but I don't remember not having access to my email in the last year or two at all. So it's actually more reliable to have it in the cloud, I think. And that's really the direction Microsoft is headed with their entire Office suite, whether it's Dynamics, CRM, Office, everything's kind of moving to the cloud, so it's just not so much a matter of if you're going to do it. I think for the most part, most people are going to end up moving to the cloud sooner or later. So it's just really a matter of picking the best time to do it. Again, two other applications that are very cloud-centric, SharePoint. We have Office 365, so our SharePoint is hosted by Microsoft. We really don't have any, I don't manage it myself. That's another department, another team that manages our internal systems. But we really don't have any SharePoint downtime. And I think it's alleviated a lot of time, effort, energy from our IT staff as far as backing up the SharePoint database and maintaining it and worrying about supporting our end users. It seems like it's very seamless to have SharePoint in the cloud. The updates happen sort of behind the scenes and it doesn't impact anyone. And the same thing, our company uses a program called YAMMER. It's sort of like, I guess the best way to describe it is it's like a collaborative tool for company communications, and it works out very well. Quite a few of our people are sort of YAMMER power users, I would say, and use it quite a bit. Okay, and Microsoft CRM Online. Again, Microsoft CRM comes in two flavors, two basic flavors. You can have it on-premise or online. I would say that the vast majority of our new deployments of CRM are online. It's just easier to deploy, quicker to scale and upgrade. So that's the way most of our, current ongoing engagements are from a CRM point of view. We do have some clients that are still having or hosting CRM on-premises, but I think in the end, CRM was one of the quick earlier adopters of this cloud methodology, and so we see that almost all of our clients are moving to a cloud deployment of CRM, unless there's some sort of need for an internal on-premises deployment. Again, Dynamics AX is taking the lead from the Microsoft suite as far as moving to the cloud. The new version of AX is basically available in cloud deployment. Before it was available on-premises, so that tells you where they're headed. Again, we have a team that can deploy AX either way, but I think at some point going forward, the bulk of our deployments for AX will be in the cloud. Microsoft supports AX very well. They can scale it, they can update it behind the scenes and make it, take the burden of worrying about infrastructure and infrastructure support off your team, which I think works out well for most of our clients. Okay, so this is kind of the bulk or the meat of the conversation. I want to talk about 12 sort of compelling reasons why you may want to move to the cloud. I'm sure you're aware of some of them, but I just wanted to make sure that it's sort of all brought to your attention, because I think when you take the sum total of all 12 reasons, it's a pretty compelling argument why you might want to move to the cloud. And specifically, I think with your Dynamics GP solution, which I'm most involved with, is Dynamics GP. Okay. Reason number one, and this is pretty obvious, is you get tremendous availability when you have your GP hosted in the cloud. Again, the Microsoft data centers are up 24/7. There's dedicated support teams monitoring your equipment. They have the ability to move machines over to new hardware should there be a problem with a given rack or a power supply or a network switch. So these things happen pretty seamlessly. I can't think of the last time someone called me up. It's been at least a year or more from all of our clients when anyone's called me and said my GP deployment's not available or something like that. It just doesn't happen anymore. So it's extremely reliable. There's no downtime just about. Microsoft every now and again will send out a notice, and I think by every now and again I mean maybe once every year, once every 6 months, that your environment might be down for an hour or two on a weekend at a specific point in time, and that's about it. They've built a lot of redundancy into their environments. All of your virtual machines are sort of triple redundant in the cloud. So those VHDs behind your machines don't exist on just one server. They actually exist in 3 places at any given time. So you have a great deal of redundancy. And then on top of the redundancy provided by Microsoft, as AK is part of our solution, and I'll talk this a little bit later, provides our own sort of backup and redundancy to make sure your data is really secure and backed up and maintained safely. And again, you don't have to worry about that, whether your IT department's backing up the right databases or saving the right files. We take care of that for you, so you have that sort of comfortable feeling that your environment is safe and protected. And here's, I think, a big one that you may be aware of, but when you move to the AKA cloud solution for an application like Dynamics GP, one of the big advantages you get with sort of a one-stop GP support phone number. You call our support team, and if it's something like an application issue, like you went to post a batch and it failed, you went to run a report and it didn't come out right or it crashed, you send it to them. Or if you need a test database restored from a backup so you can do some testing in there, you just send it all to our support team, and they either handle it themselves or they farm it over to our infrastructure support team who take care of the infrastructure thing. So it's not like you get 3 or 4 phone numbers to call and you get bounced around. When you have your Dynamics GP application hosted by AKA, it's sort of a one-stop shopping as far as support. You call up one number or you send an email to one address, and then we forward to the right person as it needs to be, and then we escalate it as necessary. It's all handled internally. So I think that makes opening up support requests and getting support a lot easier for your end users. And we take full responsibility for your environment, whether it's a Windows issue, a SQL issue, a GP issue, something on a printer driver issue. We take care of all that for you. We kind of bundle that core support into our GP support. The only time that you might have to go outside of us is if you have a specific one-off application, like maybe a purchase requisition tool that's a bolt-on to GP, or a document management system add-on to GP that we're not particularly proficient at, then we'll support it as best we can, but we may actually need to turn to that sort of third-party vendor for additional or the next level support if it's not something simple we can resolve. But for the most part, when you move to the AK Cloud solution, we take care of all your support issues directly. There's only one number to call. And this is something I think that we do well that some other hosting partners don't do necessarily, or you might not be aware of it. Each and every one of our clients gets a completely dedicated, isolated environment. There's no sharing of any resources between clients. So you don't have to worry about any Active Directory sharing, any SQL Server sharing, any remote desktop server sharing, any networking. There's actually no physical connection between any of our environments. They're all standalone, completely isolated networks that we can't communicate between the 2 networks ourselves even if we want to. We have to log into each environment separately and independently. There's no shared resources. And there's some good advantages there. Obviously, from a security point of view, you don't want to think behind the scenes that maybe your GP is supported on a SQL server with 5 other clients, which it certainly could be configured that way. But then I think if it was me, I'd be a little uncomfortable with knowing my databases were on the same SQL Server instance or same SQL server as other people's databases. You want your accounting data to be isolated and secure and only available or accessed by you. The other thing is that makes our maintenance windows very easy to schedule. Some partners might have 5 or 10 individual clients hosted on the same SQL Server. So then if you need to apply a SQL Server update or service pack, what's going to happen is all 5 clients are going to have some downtime at the same time, and it's going to make it tough to schedule, and someone's probably going to end up having downtime at a time they don't want it. Since each and every one of our environments is completely unique and dedicated, whenever we do any kind of maintenance or service on your environment, it's done over a weekend, it's scheduled, and if you say, hey, this weekend doesn't work for me, we just schedule it for another weekend. It's not a big deal. It's not like we have to coordinate between 5 clients and try to find out what the best weekend is. Each client gets to pick their best time for maintenance outages. And here's something you're probably aware of. When you move to our cloud solution, you're going to get a fixed monthly bill for the services we provide, and that it includes essentially hosting your servers, in Azure, providing GP or whatever the application that we're hosting support, your application type support. We provide the infrastructure support as well, setting up new users, handling security, maintaining SQL backups, and backing up your virtual machines. So all that's kind of bundled into our one-stop shopping price. And we include core GP upgrades in your maintenance plan as well. So if we were going to do, you came on board, right now we'd probably want you to be on GP 2016. If a couple years from now 2018 comes up and you want to do the upgrade, that's included in your monthly fee. You don't have to pay any additional consulting there. The only caveat being, if you did have a bolt-on third-party module, like I was mentioning earlier, like a purchase requisition system or a document management system, and we incurred costs to upgrade that, then we would pass those along to you. So it would almost be like a separate project between you and that third-party product provider. But the core GP upgrade would be included in your support plans. So that's a nice thing. You may not be aware of it, but every 3, 4, 5 years you get a decent-sized bill from us for our consulting services to upgrade GP. That bill goes away when you move to our cloud solution. And this is kind of a biggie. I think a lot of people have this preconceived notion that when you move to a cloud solution, all your data is in the cloud and you can't access it, and it's isolated there. And that's not really the case. When we have a cloud deployment of Dynamics GP or Dynamics AX, it's really something that we can extend to your local environment. So for some of our clients, it might mean having a local document management software in the on-premises that you want to connect to GP to access your documents. Well, we can open up links between your on-premises solution and the cloud so that you can access those things. We could set up a link so that if you want to launch SQL on a local machine and run a report and connect to the your GP SQL database in the cloud, we can do that for you. And we can be very granular with that. We can just say open this one port between this, our cloud environment and your IP address so that it's secure, and only someone from a very specific IP address can get access to that. So again, if you have some workflows, if you have some integrations, if you have some other reporting tools that tie into GP, just because you move GP in the cloud doesn't mean it's not now isolated and you can't access it. We can set up a VPN connection or open up ports and firewall settings to allow access to that application between the two environments. So we can kind of integrate your on-premises and your cloud infrastructure together as necessary. Here's one of the big advantages of the cloud, and it makes our life easy. Say you're a new company and you're growing quickly, you might have a certain size deployment initially, maybe 10 GP users. Maybe 2 years down the road you have 30 GP users. So if you scaled out a server on-premises and didn't realize what your growth potential was going to be over the next 2 or 3 years, you'd kind of have a problem because you'd probably have a fixed set of hardware in place and it'd be expensive and challenging to upgrade and move everything around. The nice thing about being on Azure is we can very quickly, probably within a matter of 10 minutes, take a given size server and add more processors to it, more memory to it, upscale the drive capacity of it, and we can do that during off hours. So you could literally tell us if you wanted a faster, better server, we could do it at night, and the next morning you'd have it available and take advantage of that additional horsepower and speed. Or we can spin up additional servers to deploy other applications very easily in the cloud. It doesn't take very long, and that makes our ability to meet your needs much easier, I would say. than trying to do it on premises. We have to order new hardware and then set it up, configure it, buy additional licenses. It's very easy to do this in Microsoft's Azure cloud solution. Another thing that comes up quite often is you may be a sort of a client that doesn't have a whole lot of customizations and things going on, but maybe every year or two you want to deploy something new or do something differently. You might need sort of a temporary on-demand environment for some testing or development work. So if you did that on premises, you'd have to find the hardware and provision it and use it, and then when you're done with it, it probably wouldn't do you any good. You know, in the cloud, it's very easy for us to deploy another server or 2 or 3, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So if you said, you know, we're going to need an extra 3 servers for an extra 3 months, we could just figure out what that cost would be, give you that cost, and you would just pay for that 3 months of the server time. Another thing that's very nice is if you have a test environment or a dev environment, we can make it available only part of the time. So if you said, look, we have a dev project going on, but people working on it are only going to work Monday through Friday, you know, from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. the latest, something like that, we could schedule those servers to be up, you know, shut down during your non-working time, and, you know, we could pass that savings on to you accordingly. So it's not like you have to pay for servers, and when they're not being used, use them. We can scale up and scale down your environments and build out new, you know, sort of ad hoc environments as needed for development work and testing. And here's probably one of the biggest things, and I think, you know, having been on the consulting side of things and being a systems engineer for 18 years almost now, you know, I go to client sites quite a bit, and sometimes there's a disconnect between the accounting folks and the IT folks, and sometimes the accounting folks will deploy something or do something and not tell the IT folks, and then what will happen is there might be a new company database within Dynamics GP, and if they don't tell the IT folks, maybe that database isn't getting backed up. And I've seen this happen before where new databases sometimes have been, you know, in the environment for a year or so, but because no one updated the SQL backup plans, that database doesn't get backed up. That's going to be very scary. Same thing if they deploy a new application or save files in certain locations. The good news is when you have our, you know, your data like Dynamics GP, your application hosted in our AK cloud solution, we back up everything. We back up your databases. We retain them for more time than you'd probably possibly need. We back up your virtual machines. We save those on a weekly basis for over a month, so that if a Windows update causes a problem, we can revert to the status of that machine before the Windows update. We back up your flat files and user files that might be saved in the cloud. So it's not like someone's going to have a spreadsheet on the local machine and maybe that machine crashes and then you don't have it anymore. Or like I said before, if someone creates a new database in GP and they don't tell the IT folks, well, guess what? There's a good chance the IT folks aren't backing it up. We make sure everything's backed up, and we also back up, have a full recovery model for all of our SQL databases. Not only do you have a full backup every day, but if you want to restore to a specific point in time from 3 days ago, like Monday at 12 in the afternoon, we could do that for you very easily. So you might not be having that kind of coverage right now. Maybe you only have full backups in place. But we have what's called a full recovery model, where we do transaction log backups, which mean we can restore to any point in time, which is a nice feature if something crashes in the middle of the day and you don't want to lose a half a day's worth of work. And if you want, we can create backup vaults in different geographic locations for you to further enhance your backup security. And I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Dynamics GP upgrades are included. And I think just from my point of view, because it's, we own the environment in the cloud, it makes it a little easier for us rather than having to get VPN access to your environment and find out what hours you're working and work with the IT staff to get the database back if we need to do the upgrade. When we host and own your GP environment sort of and maintain it, it makes the upgrade process quicker and easier for us, and I think more seamless for you. And again, if you're hosting, say, Dynamics GP in our Azure cloud solution, you choose when the upgrade happens. We don't force it on you. We don't prevent you from having it. If you say, look, I'd like to go to a newer build, I'd like to do it in the second quarter, we schedule everything, we line up the resources, and we make that happen. And there's really very little or no downtime. We do this over a weekend typically, and it's even easier for us, because it's hosted in Azure, to do that work over a weekend. And here's another big advantage. A lot of offices these days are not located in one location. They're kind of spread out geographically. And so when you host your GP environment in our cloud solution, the nice thing is we can pick a data center that's closest to your main office, but people in the remote offices will have democratic access or equal access to that environment. As long as they have a good internet connection, they'll be able to connect to your data just as if they're working in the same office as you, and that's a big advantage. I've had some clients where they say, we have GP internally, but we do have 2 satellite offices, and they have, connectivity issues sometimes to our office, and they're frustrated with the system. If you move to our cloud solution, everyone's going to get pretty much equal performance and have a good experience using Dynamics GP. Okay, one thing I want to touch on, when you see an estimate go out for our cloud-hosted environment, what are some of the things that are in there that are going to save you money? I think from one point of view, it includes all your GP support, all your infrastructure support, and upgrade assurance. So those are things you typically pay for now, whether you do it on a T&M basis or you have an ongoing support contract with us. You're paying for those kind of support services. You're paying to back up and maintain your databases. And the nice thing is here is you have upgrade assurance. Like I said before, we can upgrade your environment. You don't have this sort of big bill you get every 3 or 4 or 5 years for a GP upgrade. It's kind of bundled into your monthly costs. And so when you do an upgrade, you don't get any additional billing for that. On top of that, you may not realize this, but when you have 3 or 4 or 5 servers supporting an application like Dynamics GP and they're running 24 hours a day, there's a pretty significant electrical bill and cooling of your computer equipment that goes into it. So a typical, I think I calculated this out, I'm pretty sure this number came from me, that something like $100 per month is probably spent just to maintain the electricity and the cooling for your service just to support GP. You may not be aware of that, but if you do the math, that's about how it works out. And another advantage is, every year when you do an upgrade or you move to a new version of Windows or SQL, you're paying pretty significant licensing fees. So all this is kind of bundled into your monthly fee. We take care of your SQL licenses, our remote desktop server cows, and your Windows cows in Azure. And if you need other applications like Acrobat, we can bundle that into your fee as well. So you get one monthly fixed fee. I think one of the things we try to do more than other hosting companies, because I work, doing GP support for our clients that are hosted by other hosting providers, is I don't think we've ever changed our hosting fee for any of our clients as their databases grew or their number of databases grew. Sometimes we do one-off projects implementing new products and enhancing the environment, but just to maintain your environment as it goes through its normal growth, we're not going to change our billing rate. I've seen other clients, get billed for, like, your database was 5 gigabytes, now it's 6.5 gigabytes, we have to bill you $20 more a month or something. We don't do that. You're going to get one monthly fee, and I don't think at this point we've ever changed that for any of our clients, even as they're obviously over time their environments grow and the databases get bigger. The only thing we really look at is your user count and what applications you're using to determine our cost. Okay, and another nice thing about Azure is, when you have an on-premises solution, you're kind of stuck with that sort of 4 or 5 or 6 years until you buy new servers and take advantage of the new technologies that are available. When you're in Azure, it's constantly evolving. It's constantly getting easier to maintain, and performance is always going up. Just recently, we moved all of our clients from standard hard drives to solid-state drives, so that basically doubled their performance. And we did this work behind the scenes, just moving it over to a new platform that Azure has provided us with. And there was no charge to our clients. We just saw, obviously, it was a faster, better environment. We want to be on that, so we moved all of our clients, behind the scenes over weekends to that environment. So they literally got a doubling of performance, but no cost. And in the future, as new technologies become available and Microsoft improves their performance on the back end, that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to take advantage of that to give you the best possible experience. Another nice thing is when we first started doing Azure, maybe 3 years ago, we wanted to have backups of the virtual machines. It had to be done through PowerShell. It was kind of tedious work. Now we can schedule it and monitor it so that we know not only are your SQL databases being backed up, not only your flat files being backed up, all the servers in your environment are being backed up and retained for on a weekly basis. So it's just been something that would be able to provide a higher level of stability and security to our clients. We've never had to roll back a server to a previous backup, but it's nice to know that we could. And another nice thing that's come out is basically your ability to connect and integrate with on-premises systems has gotten much better over time. The support, if you want to connect the VPN between your main office and Azure. It's not necessary. I would say maybe 25% of our clients do, but if you want to, build a VPN connection or tunnel between the two environments, there's a lot more VPN hardware that's supported now. And then we also have the ability to open specific ports to specific IP addresses between your environment. So say you had the need maybe to have a document management system and it needed a certain port open, like an FTP port to connect to Azure. We could open that one port just between your office and Azure. It'd be, very secure. At the same time, give you the flexibility to communicate between your document management system and Azure. Okay, at this point, I think I've covered sort of the 12 main topics I wanted to go over, and I think if we have any questions, Jessica, can you forward them to me or open up the mic?
Great. Yeah, thank you, Bill, and thank you, everyone, for listening. There's a few questions here. The first question is this accessible through Office 365, or is it a separate LIN or LIN?
Yeah, so I guess on a high level, let me just explain. So when we host an application like Dynamics GP in Azure, what we do is we build out a network and we put 3 or 4 virtual servers, or it could be more than that, actually 5 or 6 for some of our clients. We build a number of VMs in it, and it's a separate, distinct network. So it's not like the CRM solution from Microsoft right now. If you get that hosted, that's really Microsoft hosting it directly. GP hosted in Azure is really basically a standalone environment with a network and a number of servers that we build out for you. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. And the next question is, how much flexibility do we have in adding integrations and other customizations?
I would say there's really, I can't think of anything we couldn't do in Azure. I get a lot of calls from our salespeople, I think, or emails from our salespeople saying, can we do this in Azure? Can we do that? I really can't think of a third-party product or an integrating product like whether it's a document management system, a purchase rep system, a reporting system that you need to integrate with. It's just a matter of if you want to have it on premises, that's fine. And many of these things we could also move to Azure too if it makes more sense. But either way, we can open up the ports or a VPN or provide the connectivity if it's a cloud-based application that we need to connect. It's just a matter of finding out the details of how that application communicates with, say, Dynamics GP, and then opening up the appropriate ports or setting up the VPN. But there's really, I can't think of anything from integration, reporting, third-party application that you can't do in Azure. It's really almost the same as deploying it on premises. We can open it up or keep it as locked down as you want. Okay.
And someone also asked, is it RDP?
Yes. So what we do is you get an RD web interface when we build out your environment, and you go to that website, and you'll see your applications for that specific user that are available once you log in, and then you click on that application. You basically get a remote desktop session onto one or more remote desktop servers in your Azure environment. So yes, in a sense, it's an RDP connection to a remote desktop server in Azure.
Okay, and do the customers have access to SQL if they want to run a script or fix something?
Yes, absolutely. So this is sort of on a client-by-client basis. I would say on a high level, we try to maintain as much control of your environment, and this works out well for a lot of our clients, where we have basically the admin rights to SQL, and we have the admin rights to Windows, and we do all the infrastructure support. I think from a Sarbanes-Oxley point of view, it works out well for a lot of our clients. But certainly if you have the need to either run scripts that are just sort of a read-only type of thing or run reports through SQL management so they're read-only, it's very easy to give you that access. And if you need more than that, we can certainly accommodate you as long as we document the level of access you have. You can have everything up to and including sysadmin level access, but we try to minimize that because I think one of our goals here is to say we own this environment, we're responsible for it. If something goes wrong, it's sort of on us. I think if we give you full sysadmin rights to things, which we can do, then it starts to become a little cloudy if something goes wrong and maybe you do something that we didn't anticipate. But the short answer is we can give you whatever level of access you need from a SQL point of view.
Great. Does anyone else have any more questions? I think that's the end of all the questions we have.
Great. So I think in summary, what I wanted to say was, one of the things I think that makes AK a little different than other cloud providers, the first thing we try to do is the monthly bill you see doesn't change. I don't think it's changed for any of our clients, and that's our plan, as best as we can. Unless something dramatically changes with your environment, like installing a new application, you're going to get the same monthly bill for the whole term of the contract. We're going to provide sort of a friendlier, quicker level of support. I know some of the hosting providers out there, they provide hosting support for the infrastructure, but maybe they don't provide GP support, so you have to call Microsoft for that. We try to give you that one-stop shopping for all your support. And I think what we also try to do is know our clients very well and give you a sort of a solution that makes sense for you as far as the number of servers, the size of the servers, and really work with you to make sure that things are handled properly and it's not just sort of a one-size-fits-all. So I think some hosting providers have sort of this is our option A, this is our option B, and you have to choose one of those two. We really take a look at how many users you have, what applications you have, what you're trying to integrate to, and build that environment that's performs well, it's secure, and also that we can support it and work with you to make sure you get the level of support and the good feeling about the application that you really should have. And again, I think this was sort of general. If you had specific questions, I think we could set up, between myself and maybe your IT staff, a separate one-off call and maybe talk about the individual needs of your environment. If you have other applications or what build of GP you're on or whatever it is you're concerned about, we could maybe have a one-off call and really get into more specific details. This was kind of high level and introductory in nature. I guess every environment's different, and that's where I think we come in. We can get down and try to build an environment that kind of meets your needs and really let you know what your options are.
Okay, great. So I think this concludes our webinar for today.
Great.
If you have any questions, please contact Bill Vicino. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.